Prologue: the shot that shook America on September 10, 2025. A single bullet ended the life of one of the most visible young conservative voices in America, Charlie Kirk. The assassination, carried out in the middle of a public event at Utah Valley University, sent shockwaves through the nation. It was not merely the death of an activist, but the violent silencing of a man whose career had been built around speaking loudly, challenging opponents, and mobilizing a generation of conservative students. The killing instantly transformed him from a polarizing figure into a symbol of the dangers of political hatred and the fragility of free speech in a deeply divided America. To grasp the full magnitude of this event, one must first look at Kirk's life. His origins, the rise of Turning Point USA, his media empire, his influence on youth politics, and finally the violent end that turned him into both a martyr and a cautionary tale. Charlie Kirk was born on October 14, 1993, in the Chicago suburb of Arlington Heights, Illinois. Raised in a middle-class family, he experienced a typical Midwestern upbringing but displayed unusual traits from an early age. Unlike many of his peers, Kirk was not especially athletic or artistically inclined. What set him apart was an insatiable curiosity about politics, history, and America's founding principles. As a teenager, Kirk became active in local church groups and school debate clubs. He often clashed with teachers and classmates over political and cultural issues, already feeling that the liberal mainstream dominated academic environments. Instead of being discouraged, these arguments fueled his conviction that conservative youth needed a platform and a movement of their own. In 2012, at the age of 18, Kirk made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of pursuing a traditional college degree, he dedicated himself full-time to building a national grassroots movement for young conservatives. This bold choice shocked his parents, confused his friends, and even drew criticism from conservative elders who doubted a teenager could lead such a cause. But Kirk pressed forward with relentless determination. Turning Point USA Tpuza was born in the summer of 2012. What started as a modest project in the Chicago suburbs soon expanded into a sprawling network of student activists across the United States. With the help of early donors and allies, Kirk rented small offices, printed banners with provocative slogans, and personally recruited volunteers at college campuses. The mission of Tpuza was clear: to educate students about the importance of fiscal responsibility, free markets, and limited government. But Kirk's strategy went far beyond economics. He understood that politics had become cultural, emotional, and media-driven. Thus, Tpuza events were flashy, loud, and visually appealing. Conferences featured giant stages, celebrity speakers, patriotic music, and endless photo opportunities for Instagram and TikTok. Kirk tapped into the frustration of young conservatives who felt silenced on campuses where liberal and progressive ideologies were dominant. Through slogans like "Big Government Sucks" and "Socialism Fails Every Time," Tpuza gave conservative students a sense of belonging and empowerment. By 2016, Tpuza had grown exponentially, with chapters in hundreds of universities. Its annual Student Action Summit became a key gathering for the conservative movement, drawing thousands of young attendees and high-profile politicians, including then-candidate Donald Trump. Kirk's ambition extended beyond grassroots organizing. He wanted a megaphone to reach not just students but millions of Americans. This ambition led to the launch of The Charlie Kirk Show, first as a podcast and later syndicated on talk radio. His style was fiery yet polished. He mixed intellectual arguments with emotional appeals, always framing himself as a defender of common-sense American values against elites, leftists, and globalists. Some of his recurring themes included free speech. Kirk condemned what he described as censorship of conservative voices on campuses and online platforms. Pro-life advocacy. He passionately opposed abortion, framing it as the greatest human rights crisis of the modern age. Gun rights. Kirk portrayed the Second Amendment as sacred and essential for protecting freedom. Christian faith, though not ordained, he frequently spoke about the role of Christianity in shaping America. Patriotism, he rejected narratives of systemic racism or historical guilt, instead celebrating America as the greatest nation in history. By his late 20s, Kirk had become a familiar face on Fox News, conservative podcasts, and at political rallies. He was admired by millions, but also fiercely hated by critics who accused him of spreading conspiracy theories and misinformation. The early 2020s were years of extraordinary turmoil in the United States. The COVID-19 pandemic, the 2020 presidential election, protests over racial injustice, and economic uncertainty left the nation polarized and restless. Kirk thrived in this environment. To his supporters, he was a brave truth teller willing to confront uncomfortable realities. To his opponents, he was a dangerous provocateur feeding division. He courted controversy openly, using it to grow his platform. By 2024, PUSA chapters existed in nearly every state, and Kirk was a regular speaker at rallies, church conferences, and conservative conventions. He announced his American Comeback Tour, a series of live events across the country meant to inspire young conservatives and rebuild faith in America's future. But this growing influence also brought growing risks. Protests often erupted outside his events. Threatening letters arrived at PUSA headquarters. Security around him was quietly tightened, though Kirk himself often downplayed the threats, insisting he wanted to remain accessible to students. By the summer of 2025, Kirk's tour had already taken him through dozens of states. In each stop, he debated progressive students, rallied conservative crowds, and filmed episodes of his show. Utah Valley University UVU was supposed to be just another stop, not the end of his journey. On September 10, 2025, Kirk arrived in Orem, Utah. The event was advertised as part of the Prove Me Wrong series, a format where he sat at a table, invited critics to confront him, and answered questions from the audience. The setting was casual but intense, designed to encourage raw, unfiltered exchanges. About 200 students and locals gathered in a lecture hall. Security was present but minimal. Kirk took the stage with his usual energy, answering questions about the Second Amendment, abortion, and the future of the conservative movement. For nearly 20 minutes, the event proceeded normally. Then, everything changed. At approximately 7:20 p.m., witnesses recall a sharp crack echoing through the room. At first, some thought it was a microphone malfunction or a balloon popping. But within seconds, the horror became clear. Charlie Kirk clutched his neck, blood spurting between his fingers. He staggered, then collapsed. Students screamed, some ducked under chairs, others rushed toward him. Security agents attempted to shield his body while calling for paramedics. Investigators later determined that the shot came from the roof of the Lissy Center, a building about 142 to 200 yards from the lecture hall. The weapon was believed to be a bolt-action rifle, a weapon chosen for precision. The assassin had likely scouted the location, waited for Kirk to appear in a predictable position, and then fired a single, devastating round aimed directly at his carotid artery. Within minutes, Kirk was rushed to Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Provo. Doctors worked frantically to save him, but the wound was catastrophic. By late evening, the announcement came. Charlie Kirk was dead. The news spread instantly across social media and cable news networks. Hashtags like Charlie Kirk and political assassination trended worldwide. Chaos gripped the campus. Police locked down the area, evacuating students and faculty. Helicopters circled overhead. SWAT teams searched rooftops and buildings. Panic and confusion reigned as rumors spread. Was this a lone gunman or part of a coordinated attack? By midnight, authorities released a statement. The shooter remained at large. Surveillance images captured a man of college age wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, and dark clothing. He was declared a person of interest, and a manhunt began. 2 individuals were detained near the campus, but after questioning they were released. The true assassin had vanished into the night. The FBI, ATF, and Utah law enforcement formed a joint task force. A $100,000 reward was announced for information leading to the shooter's capture. But as of September 12th, no arrest had been made. The nation erupted in grief, anger, and fear. Former President Donald Trump, who had long supported Kirk and appeared at Pew's events, released a statement calling him a legendary patriot, a warrior for truth, and a dear friend. Trump later announced he would posthumously award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Governor Spencer Cox of Utah described the incident as a political assassination, warning that America was entering a dangerous era where violence replaces dialogue. Republicans in Congress called for immediate investigations into extremist threats against conservatives. Democrats, while condemning the killing, also warned against exploiting it politically, urging Americans to reject violence from all sides. International media compared the event to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert Kennedy, framing it as a symptom of America's instability. The day after the assassination, Utah Valley University was eerily quiet. The campus, normally buzzing with students, became the epicenter of one of the largest manhunts in the state's history. Police tape still marked the lecture hall where Kirk had collapsed, while snipers and investigators scoured rooftops for ballistic evidence. The FBI quickly took the lead in the investigation, treating it as a potential act of domestic terrorism. Forensic teams examined the trajectory of the bullet, confirming that it had been fired from a rooftop more than 140 yards away. This was no random shot. It was precise, calculated, and deliberate. Investigators searched the Lissy Center rooftop and discovered footprints, shell casings, and signs of a carefully planned sniper position. The rifle itself was not recovered, but ballistic analysis confirmed it was a high-caliber bolt-action weapon, likely chosen for long-range accuracy. Witnesses described seeing a man in dark clothing leaving the area, but no arrest followed. Police released grainy surveillance images showing what appeared to be a young male in a baseball cap, sunglasses, and dark hoodie. The images circulated online within hours, sparking thousands of theories about his identity. Authorities urged calm, but for millions of Americans, the images symbolized a chilling reality. Someone had assassinated a high-profile conservative leader in broad daylight and had vanished without a trace. Speculation about the shooter's motive began immediately. Political violence. The most obvious theory was that Kirk was targeted for his politics. As one of the most visible conservative activists in the country, he had made countless enemies. He clashed openly with progressive activists, left-wing academics, and pro-choice organizations. To his supporters, the assassination was an extension of escalating hostility toward conservatives. Personal vendetta. Investigators also considered the possibility of a personal grudge. Kirk's visibility meant he interacted with thousands of people, including critics who felt personally slighted by him. Could it have been a disgruntled student, a former associate, or someone radicalized by his rhetoric? Extremist influence. Online chatter hinted at the involvement of extremist groups. Both left-wing and right-wing fringe movements were mentioned, with some online posts celebrating his death, while others claimed it was part of a government conspiracy. Random violence. Though unlikely, some argued the act could have been carried out by a disturbed individual with no clear political motive, simply seeking notoriety. The truth, however, remained elusive. Each theory highlighted America's fractured climate. Every political tribe saw the killing as proof of its worst fears. Within hours, the media turned the assassination into the biggest story of the year. Conservative outlets portrayed Kirk as a martyr, killed for daring to speak the truth in a hostile culture. Progressive outlets, while condemning the violence, debated whether his own rhetoric had contributed to a climate of rage. CABLA News ran wall-to-wall coverage, replays of his speeches, interviews with students who had been present, and endless panels of analysts. Social media exploded with hashtags Justice for Charlie, Political Assassination, Turning Point, and Hokalid Kirk. For many young conservatives, Kirk's death felt like a personal attack. Students posted videos crying, recounting how he had given them courage to speak out in classrooms. At candlelight vigils across campuses, his face appeared on posters with captions like "He fought for us and silenced, but not defeated." For his critics, the tragedy forced reflection. Some commentators admitted they had disagreed strongly with his politics but were horrified by his assassination. Others cautioned against turning him into a saint, reminding the public of his divisive tactics. But across the board, the killing highlighted the dangerous escalation of America's culture wars. The assassination did not remain a domestic story. International headlines compared the killing of Charlie Kirk to the political assassinations of the 1960s. European newspapers warned of America eating itself alive. In Asia, state media portrayed the event as evidence of America's instability, questioning its ability to project democracy abroad. In the United Kingdom, commentators recalled the murder of MP Joe Cox in 2016 and drew parallels with the dangers faced by outspoken public figures. In Latin America, where political violence has long plagued democracies, Kirk's death was described as a warning sign that the U.S. was entering a similar era of instability. Even Russia and China used the story as propaganda, claiming that America was no longer a safe model of democracy. Charlie Kirk's funeral became a national event. Thousands attended, including Donald Trump, governors, senators, and conservative media figures. The ceremony was held in Chicago, near his hometown, in a megachurch filled with mourners waving American flags. Eulogies painted him as a fighter who lived and died for freedom. Trump called him a brother in the fight for America and vowed to honor him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. For many attendees, it was more than a funeral. It was a rallying cry. Chants of "Carry the torch" and "Never forget Charlie" echoed outside. TUSA leaders pledged to continue his mission, promising that his death would not silence the movement. The funeral was broadcast live across major networks, becoming a symbolic moment of collective grief for millions. The assassination of Charlie Kirk will forever be remembered as a turning point in American political history. His life and death symbolize the perils of a society consumed by polarization. For conservatives, Kirk became a martyr, proof that their voices were under attack, not just in classrooms and online platforms, but now physically. His death galvanized young conservatives who vowed to fight harder. For liberals, the killing underscored the need to reject political violence universally. Some critics softened their view of Kirk after his death, acknowledging his dedication and energy even if they opposed his politics. For America, the event intensified debates over free speech, security at public events, gun laws, and the boundaries of political discourse. His assassination may be remembered alongside those of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy, moments when America realized that words can be met with bullets and that democracy itself can be shaken by violence. Charlie Kirk's story did not end with his death. His ideas, his controversies, and his movement live on. Turning Point USA continues to rally students. His speeches circulate online, reaching millions more in death than in life. But the question remains, why was he killed, and what does it mean for America? Was it an isolated act of hatred or a symptom of deeper national sickness? Was it one man's grudge, or a sign that political speech has become so volatile that it invites bloodshed? The answers may never be fully known. What is certain is that September 10, 2025 will stand as a day when America was forced to confront the price of its division. Charlie Kirk, once a teenager with a dream of giving conservatives a voice, rose to national prominence, became a lightning rod of the culture wars, and died as a symbol of America's dangerous polarization. His voice has been silenced, but his story continues to echo, a warning, a legacy, and a tragedy.